This will sound very strange, but in October of 1999, the famous actor Harrison Ford crashed the helicopter that he was flying. Also in October of 1999, Egypt Air Flight 990 crashed into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of the US. Harrison Ford's helicopter crash and this Flight 990 crash are pointing to and predicting the date that NASA's helicopter will crash on July 11th, 2023. This video is part 1 in a video series that has 4 parts. Each part is very different from the other part, and all of these videos need to be watched in chronological order. This will sound very strange, but it is predicted that NASA's helicopter on the planet Mars will crash on July 11th, 2023. The post date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is made ahead of time, as well as does this time-stamped email by Google and this forensic notes document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. This video is an extremely profound and interesting video and is one of the most important videos on this channel. As of the date that this video was posted, there is 0 news regarding when NASA's helicopter's next flight will be. Not only am I predicting that NASA's helicopter will crash on the red planet Mars on July 11th, I am also predicting that there will be a flight on July 11th. On October 31st, 2022, the National Transportation Safety Board released documents regarding their investigation into a helicopter crash on the island of Hawaii that occurred in June. The crash was in a remote lava field, which is the equivalent of a desert. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus said, quote, "When the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it passes through waterless places. Seeking rest and finding none, it says, 'I will return to my house from which I came.'" Unquote. This is symbolism for the Antichrist Barack Obama, who is from Hawaii, who will soon return to the White House. Obama will become the president again through the replacement of Kamala Harris after it is predicted that she will die in a plane crash on October 17th, 2023. The crash of NASA's helicopter on Mars will hint at this. The National Transportation Safety Board document said that the engine of the helicopter that crashed in Hawaii was recently swapped out, but that on the day of the crash, 2 tours had gone fine. It was on the 3rd tour of the day that the crash happened. This is symbolism for the 3rd term of the Antichrist, who is from Hawaii. Obama's first 2 terms were fine, but in this 3rd term, he will persecute God's people as the Antichrist. It is predicted that Michelle Obama will replace Joe Biden as the president, and then Barack will replace Michelle as the president. The swapping out of the engine of the helicopter and it operating fine until the 3rd tour of the day is symbolism for the coming swapping out of presidents. Obama will become the 48th president. In the statement from a 48-year-old passenger in the National Transportation Safety Board report released on October 31st, he noted the time from onset to crashing was quick. He was attempting to say the Lord's Prayer and was not able to complete it, unquote. The coming persecution will be swift and will catch people off guard. There will be little time to prepare. This 2 tours that were fine, which was followed by the 3rd tour, which resulted in a crash, and hints at the 2 terms for Obama that were fine, followed by the 3rd term of him as the Antichrist, hints at the number 23, which is one reason why the basketball president wore jersey number 23 in high school. This 2 tours followed by the 3rd tour that was a crash in Hawaii, and Barack Obama wore jersey number 23 in high school in Hawaii. God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to confirm the signs and connections, because the basketball president wore jersey number 23 in high school and became the president in 2009. God also pairs the numbers 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the 44th president, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 in high school. Obama went down to Cairo, Egypt, to deliver his famous Cairo speech in order to tell the Muslim world that America is no longer a Christian nation. The Egyptians said that he was the new King Tut of the world, and in the Bible, the Pharaoh king of Egypt is symbolism for the Antichrist. The 31st chapter of the book of Isaiah describes the Antichrist in the end times that will be defeated by the Messiah in 2024, and this is the significance of this date, June 4th, 6-4, which hints at 6 times 4 equals 24. And this chapter begins with, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt." This is exactly what Obama did right after becoming the president. He went down to Egypt. The release of the National Transportation Safety Board's documents on October 31st regarding the Hawaii helicopter crash was exactly 23 years after Egypt Air Flight 990 that killed 203 people. 203 deaths hints at the number 23, and Flight 990 hints at the number 9, making this a pairing of 9 and 23. 990 is also the 44th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 44th row is 990, making this also a pairing of 23 and 44. Egypt Air Flight 990 went down on its way to Egypt. And Egypt Air Flight 990 went down on its way to Egypt on the 31st of the month, and the 31st chapter of Isaiah begins with, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt." The number 990 is the 44th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 44th row is the number 990. Flight 990 crashed 4 + 4 days after Harrison Ford crashed a helicopter. Harrison Ford crashed his helicopter on the 23rd day of the month, and this 4 + 4 days hints at 44. This 4 + 4 days from the 23rd of the month is a pairing of 23 and 44 that confirm the signs and connections. Harrison Ford and 4 + 4 days hint at the 44th president, who will replace Kamala Harris after it is predicted that she will die in a plane crash and will not be elected, just like President Ford. This is the reason for the name Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's two names, Harrison and Ford, are both names of presidents. There was William Harrison and Benjamin Harrison, the only two grandfather-grandson presidents, and they were the 9th and 23rd presidents, which is another pairing of 9 and 23 that points to Barack Obama. President Harrison, Benjamin Harrison, his presidency, which was the 23rd presidency, was skipped by President Cleveland. President Cleveland was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms. He skipped the 23rd presidency. He was the 22nd and 24th president. This hints at how Barack Obama will also serve non-consecutive terms, after he will become the president again through replacing Kamala Harris. Harrison Ford's name Ford hints at the other president that God is using to point to Barack Obama, President Gerald Ford, the only president to have never been elected vice president or president. Gerald Ford was appointed the vice president after Spiro Agnew was replaced due to a scandal. And then Richard Nixon himself was involved in a scandal, and Gerald Ford replaced Richard Nixon. Likewise, Barack Obama will also become the president again through not being elected, but instead appointed. This is how he will overcome the 22nd Amendment's restriction on someone from being elected to the office more than twice. He will be appointed instead. Harrison Ford crashed his helicopter in California, the 31st state to join the Union, and 4 + 4 days later was the date 1031, which hints at 131 and hints at the first verse of the 31st chapter that begins with, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt," and on this 1031 date, the Egypt air flight went down and crashed on its way to Egypt. God also pairs 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs, as the 44th president was the basketball president that wore jersey number 23. All right, so from the day that Harrison Ford had his first major aviation mishap, which was his crash in a helicopter, in October of 1999, it is 4 + 4 days to the day that 203 people died in an aviation mishap when Flight 990 crashed as it went down to Egypt. And 203 and 4 + 4 hint at 44 and 23, which pair together and confirm the signs. And in turn, there were 203 deaths on Flight 990, and God also pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to also confirm the signs and connections, to point to the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 and became president in 2009. Furthermore, this 203 deaths on Flight 990 occurred in 1999. This 203 deaths is exactly 23 years to this National Transportation Safety Board report, the public release of the documents regarding this helicopter crash that was a prophetic helicopter crash. And so Harrison Ford's helicopter crash connects extremely profoundly to this helicopter crash. And this connection between these two prophetic helicopter crashes is a connection of 4 + 4 days and 23 years, which is a pairing of 23 and 44 that confirm the signs and connections. God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required, and that is what makes this, what is being explained on this channel, true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. It works on the principle of second and third witnesses confirming matters, and one simple way in which God would do this would be through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9, 23, and 44. And so from the date of the crash of Flight 990, it is 203 days, which hints at 23. And so from the crash of Flight 990 in 1999, that had 203 deaths, which hints at 23, it is exactly 23 years to this helicopter report of this crash, which is in turn exactly 253 days to the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars. The reason why 253 days is relevant is that 253 is the 81st semi-prime number. God uses triangular numbers, prime numbers, and semi-prime numbers as symbolism for numbers. A semi-prime number is only divisible by two other prime numbers. The reason why the 81st semi-prime number is very relevant is a number of reasons. First of all, it is 9 times 9. And so this 9 times 9 that is contained within the 81st semi-prime number confirms the connections, including the 23 years to the 203 deaths, because God pairs 9 and 23 together. It also connects with Flight 990 in 1999, 9 times 9. Also, God pairs 9 and 11 together to confirm the signs and connections and to point to the big warning of judgment, which was the events on 9/11 in 2001. From the crash of Flight 990 in 1999, it is exactly 1 year, 10 months, and 11 days to 9/11 in 2001 and the crashes of the planes into the Twin Towers on 9/11. 1 year, 10 months, and 11 days hints at 11. And 990, Flight 990 hints at 9 in 1999. And so this connection is profound. It is confirmation. The pairings of the numbers together confirm this connection. That is relevant because the 81st prime number also is a 9/11 number, because 9 divided by 11 is 0.818181 into infinity. And so also on Flight 11, which was the first plane that struck the first tower on 9/11, there were 81 passengers. And 81 passengers hints at 8 plus 1 equals 9. And on that plane, there was a crew of 11 people on Flight 11 that flew into the Twin Towers that looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state to join the Union, in New York City, which is the name of a city that is made up of 11 letters. And this is because Jesus coined the phrase the 11th hour, which in ancient Israel referred to the last hour of daylight before darkness, and in English is an idiom that means last chance. Time is running out, as in the last chance for the nation to repent and turn back to God before judgment and destruction. There is more significance to this 253 number. The numbers that divide it, the two prime numbers that are the divisors of 253, are 11 and 23. 23 is a number that God is using here. Again, it is exactly 23 years. This NTBS SB report, helicopter report, is exactly 23 years after the 203 deaths in Flight 990, which is 4 plus 4 days after Harrison Ford's helicopter crash. And again, this video is about the connection to the crash of NASA's helicopter. Again, it connects with 23 years. And then from October 31st, 2022, it connects with 253 days, which is a semi-prime number that is divisible by 11 and 23. The significance of the number 11, I don't think will be explained in this video. It will be explained in part 2 of this video. So just keep that in mind, that this date, October 31st, connects with 11 times 23 days to July 11th, the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars. And so as we can see here, Harrison Ford's helicopter crash, his prophetic helicopter crash, connects extremely profoundly to the date it is predicted that NASA's Mars helicopter will crash. From Harrison Ford's helicopter crash, it is 4 plus 4 days, which hints at 44, to the Egypt Air Flight 990 and 203 deaths, which hints at 23. And in turn, this was exactly 23 years to the National Transportation Safety Board report on the helicopter crash, which in turn connects profoundly to the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars. And as I will explain in a couple of minutes, the helicopter crash on Mars is predicting and pointing to the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. And Harrison Ford is known for his aviation mishaps. And so, as I will explain, Harrison Ford's aviation mishap, which was his helicopter crash, connects extremely profoundly to the date it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, the new Indiana Jones Harrison Ford movie. And Indiana Jones hints at Kamala Harris, who is of Indian descent. Indiana Jones hints at Indian descent. And in the opening scene in the second Indiana Jones movie, Harrison Ford flies an airplane and the airplane crashes into a mountain in India. Not only is Harrison Ford known for his aviation mishaps, but he is also known for his aviation hobby. In fact, he is a spokesperson for the aviation community. He narrated the documentary, the IMAX documentary, Age of Airplanes. And coincidentally, this hobby that he started after the age of 50 is a coincidence because his acting career is filled with him in roles of a pilot. This is all designed by God because God is using Harrison Ford and his aviation mishaps to point to the aviation mishap and death of Kamala Harris in an airplane, which will lead to the rise of the Antichrist, Barack Obama, who will replace her and thus be appointed to the office of president again instead of being elected. He will overcome the 22nd Amendment's restriction this way, and this is hinted at with the name Ford. Harrison Ford hints at Gerald Ford, the only president to never have been elected. Instead, he was appointed. He was a never elected vice president or president. Barack Obama will be appointed vice president and then appointed president after the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. The name Harrison Ford is the name of two former presidents, President Harrison and President Ford. The prophetic reason for the name Harrison is because this points to President Benjamin Harrison and President Grover Cleveland, who was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 23rd presidency of Benjamin Harrison. This is why Harrison Ford's helicopter crash connects to the crash of Egypt Air Flight 990 that had 203 deaths, which hints at 23. It hints at the 23rd president, and how President Grover Cleveland was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 23rd presidency. And that's why the 203 deaths connects with exactly 23 years to the other prophetic helicopter crash, which connects with exactly 23 weeks to the predicted date of NASA's Mars helicopter crash, which, as I will explain in a minute, connects to the predicted date that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis, and this is because this is right near the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. The Great American Eclipse passed over St. Louis, and right after that peaked in the center of the country over an area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. And as I explained earlier, God is pointing to the 31st chapter of the book of Isaiah, which begins with, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt," and then describes the Antichrist in the end times in this prophecy. This prophecy is the 31st chapter, which is again why Egypt Air Flight 990 crashed on the 31st of the month, and why this crash of Egypt Air Flight 990 connects, as I explained, to the predicted date that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis, which will point to the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt, over which the path of totality of the Great American Eclipse peaked. In fact, it peaked over a city named Cairo, Illinois. And again, right after becoming president, Barack Obama went down to Cairo, Egypt, to deliver his famous Cairo, Egypt speech in order to tell the Muslim world that America is no longer a Christian nation. This plane crash at the beginning of the second Indiana Jones movie in India hints at Kamala Harris, who is of Indian descent. And the plot of the first Indiana Jones movie, starring Harrison Ford, involves Harrison Ford going down to Egypt. The plot of the movie takes place in Cairo, Egypt. And this is why this trail of signs from Harrison Ford's helicopter crash goes through the crash of Egypt Air Flight 990 as it went down to Egypt, and why the trail ends with Kamala Harris going down in a plane crash in St. Louis next to Little Egypt, 4 days after the National Transportation Safety Board report on the prophetic helicopter crash on October 31st in 2022 was the date 11/4, November 4th. And 11/4 hints at 11 times 4 equals 44. This was the day that the rocket that China launched for its space station made an uncontrolled descent from space and crashed on Earth into the Pacific Ocean. China is known as the Red Dragon, and its rocket's uncontrolled fall from the second heaven, outer space, to Earth is symbolism for Bible prophecy in Revelation chapter 12. The archangel Michael throws the red dragon, Satan, and his angels down from heaven to earth. This will also be the symbolism in NASA's helicopter falling and crashing onto the red planet Mars. It will be explained more later, but God is using helicopters in his prophetic signs as symbolism for the red dragon in Revelation chapter 12. China's rocket crashed uncontrollably from the second heaven to earth on the date 11/4 because it hints at 44, and this was 4 days after the release of the National Transportation Safety Board's documents regarding the helicopter crash in Hawaii of the Bell 407 helicopter. Also from October 31st, 2022, the date of the NTSB report regarding the helicopter crash, which was exactly 23 years after Flight 990 Egypt Air crashed, killing 203 people, which hints at the number 23. It is 23 days from the NTSB report on the helicopter crash in Hawaii on October 31st, 2022, to the 23rd of the month of November, when NASA flew its helicopter on Mars for 18.3 seconds. 18.3 seconds hints at 18 divided by 3, which is 6, because 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6, which in Bible prophecy is symbolism for the Antichrist. It flew 16 feet, which also hints at the Antichrist, the 44th president, because 16 is 4 times 4. Also, NASA flew its helicopter for 18 seconds, and the 18th prime number is 61, and the Antichrist was born in 1961. Also, on December 1st, the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, issued an urgent report regarding this same helicopter crash in Hawaii, the crash of the Bell 407 helicopter. The urgent report regarding this helicopter crash was an immediate warning to all those that have a Bell 407 helicopter to immediately examine their tails of the helicopter, as the reason why the helicopter crashed was because of a problem with the tail of the helicopter. And as will be explained progressively through this video series, God is using helicopters as symbolism for the dragon in Revelation chapter 12. And a big part of this description of this dragon involves his tail in Revelation chapter 12. NASA's helicopter will crash on the red planet Mars, which again will be symbolism for the red dragon being thrown down from heaven to earth, described in Revelation chapter 12. Along with this dragon that is thrown down from heaven to earth are his angels that are thrown down with him from heaven to earth. And this is also symbolized in the same chapter with this dragon that uses his tail to sweep 1/3 of the stars down from the heavens to earth. And so on December 1st, we have this urgent report, which is, of course, symbolism for the urgency God is warning of the coming Antichrist and judgment, this urgent report regarding this Bell 407 hints at the number 11. 407 hints at 4 plus 7 equals 11. And this was on the 1st of December, 31 days after the other NTSB report on the 31st of October, which again connects to the day that the Egypt Air flight crashed and went down on its way to Egypt, which hints at Isaiah chapter 31, which describes the Antichrist and begins with, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt." And so it is 31 days in between these two NTSB reports, and these reports regard the Bell 407 helicopter, which hints at 4 plus 7 equals 11, which confirms this 31 days connection between these two reports, because the number 31 is the 11th prime number. The instances of the number 11 in the Bible appear in context of the execution of God's judgment. This urgent warning by the NTSB regarding the Bell 407 helicopters regards their tails, and in Revelation chapter 12, the red dragon sweeps a third of the stars down to earth with his tail, which is symbolism for the fallen angels that are thrown down from heaven to earth, along with the red dragon, which is what will be symbolized when NASA's helicopter will fall and crash on the red planet. A minute ago, I explained how Harrison Ford's helicopter crash in 1999 connects extremely profoundly to this National Transportation Safety Board report on October 31st regarding this helicopter crash in Hawaii. And now I have just explained how that report connects with 31 days to this urgent warning by the National Transportation Safety Board regarding the tails of these helicopters. And on this same day, on December 1st, 2022, the movie trailer for the new Indiana Jones movie starring Harrison Ford was officially released. This Harrison Ford movie trailer was officially released on the same day as this National Transportation Safety Board urgent warning for these helicopters. In between this National Transportation Safety Board report regarding these Bell 407 helicopters, there are 4 months and 7 days to the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars. And so, as was just explained, Harrison Ford's helicopter crash connects profoundly to the date of this emergency National Transportation Safety Board report regarding these Bell 407 helicopters, and this in turn connects to the date that NASA's helicopter will crash. The account of Noah's flood in the Bible begins with a period of 7 days to load the ark, followed by increasing floodwaters for 40 days, for a total of 47 days. The number 407 in the Bell 407 helicopters hints at this. It hints at 40 and 7, 47 days. The National Transportation Safety Board issued an emergency report regarding the tails of all Bell 407 helicopters 47 days after the emergency report regarding the tails of the Bell 407 helicopters was the day of the first naked eye observations of comet E3ZTF. This was on January 17th, and at this time, this comet appeared in the constellation Draco. Draco is the dragon constellation, and again, God is using helicopters as symbolism for the red dragon and his tail that is described in Revelation chapter 12. Also, on this same January 17th date, strong solar winds from a coronal mass ejection caused a disconnection event of the tail of the comet, making it appeared to be broken. This event was widely reported in astronomy media. This tail event of the comet occurred 47 days after the National Transportation Safety Board issued an emergency report regarding all Bell 407 helicopters and their tails. And again, this tail event of the comet occurred in the constellation Draco, the dragon, and God is using helicopters and their tails as symbolism for the red dragon and his tail in Revelation chapter 12. A prophetic sign related to NASA's helicopter on the red planet was predicted in advance to occur on January 17th, and then on January 17th, we received this comet tail in Draco prophetic sign. January 17th is 117, which hints at 117. 117 hints at the 1117th word in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, which is the word Bama, which means high place. The comet in the night sky, as well as the helicopter on Mars, are symbolic of the high place. The reason for this connection is that Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven, and Barack Obama in Hebrew means lightning from heaven. Barak is the Hebrew word for lightning. O is the word for from in Aramaic, the language Jesus would have spoken, and Bama is the word for high place, which in the Bible is a metaphor for heaven. On January 22nd, a few days after the first naked eye observations of the comet on the day that its tail appeared to be disconnected, the comet appeared to have what is called an, quote, anti-tail, unquote. This tail appears pointing to the sun and opposite the comet's dust and ion tails. This anti-tail is caused by particles lying on a disk on the orbital plane of the comet, and when Earth aligns with that plane, it looks like a reverse tail. The day that this anti-tail became visible, on January 22nd, was the day that NASA's Red Planet helicopter flew for 144 seconds. In Bible prophecy, those that will escape the persecution from the red dragon and Antichrist and will be raptured to heaven are symbolized by the number 144. The date January 22nd, 122, hints at 1 times 22 equals 22. The red dragon and the Antichrist will persecute people through what is called in Bible prophecy the mark of the Antichrist, and this mark is symbolized by the number 22. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist that is described in the book of Ezekiel would have been the Tav mark, and the letter Tav is the last and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, which is the 22nd book of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. This anti-tail on the date 122 hints at the number 22 and the mark of the Antichrist. This comet's anti-tail was in the constellation Draco, the dragon, on the date 122, and the date 122 hints at the number 22, and this was exactly 22 weeks after the premiere episode of the new show House of Dragon received a record 9.99 million views, the largest audience for a new original series in the history of pay cabler. God uses all-time records to establish signs. The date of this TV show, House of Dragon, hints at the White House and the Red Dragon, Barack Obama. The show House of Dragon was essentially a return of the show Game of Thrones, which was symbolism for the return of the Antichrist king to the White House. The show received 9.99 million views, and the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment. The number 23 is the 9th prime number, and as was explained, God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to confirm the signs and connections, and to point to the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 and became president in 2009. God also pairs 9 and 23 together to identify what the mark of the Antichrist is, as the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in Ezekiel chapter 9, and the mark of the Antichrist involves DNA, and DNA is made up of 23 chromosomes. Again, in addition to pairing 9 and 23 together, God also pairs 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. This House of Dragon show received a record 9.99 million views, exactly 23 weeks, which is almost exactly 44% of a calendar year, after the 44-year-old GOAT, greatest of all time, of football, Tom Brady, announced with a tweet that he would return for a 23rd season. In the Bible, GOAT is Antichrist symbolism, and this was the day that the GOAT Antichrist, the 44th president, announced with a tweet that he had COVID and encouraged everyone to take an injection, which makes changes to one's 23 chromosomes 23 days before he returned to the White House for the first time for the anniversary of his nationalized health care. The GOAT Antichrist and 44th president that wore jersey number 23 announced that he had COVID on the day that the 44-year-old GOAT of football announced his return for a 23rd season on the date 3/13, which hints at 3 divided by 13 equals 0.230. The 44-year-old GOAT of football announced his return for a 23rd season exactly 23 weeks, which is almost exactly 44% of a calendar year, after the big return of the GOAT game when Tom Brady returned to Boston to play his former team, the Patriots. As was just explained, these return of the GOAT's signs in March of 2022 connect with this comet's anti-tail on the date 122 in 2023. The media emphasized how this comet was returning to the solar system for the first time in 50,000 years. This comet's anti-tail on the date 122 was exactly 50 years after the Supreme Court of the U.S. ruled to make abortion legal. The comet's return 50 years after this ruling and 50,000 years after it was last in the solar system points to the sin of abortion, and also the return of demons to possess America and Western civilization due to the worship of the devil through the sacrifice of aborted babies on the altar of the god of self. This comet became a prophetic sign when it first became visible to the naked eye on January 17th. Again, on January 17th, strong solar winds from a coronal mass ejection from the sun caused a disconnection event in the tail of the comet, making it appear to be broken. This event was widely reported in astronomy media. As I have been explaining, God is using helicopter signs and their tails as symbolism for the red dragon and his tail that is described in Revelation chapter 12. Likewise, this comet appeared in Draco, the dragon constellation, and this disconnection event involving the comet's tail is also a Revelation chapter 12 prophetic sign. This is why exactly 12 weeks after this Revelation 12 sign, involving the solar winds that affected the comet's tail is the date it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die. As explained in other videos, God is using James Earl Jones, the voice of Mufasa in The Lion King, as symbolism for the upcoming lion's roar on the surface of the sun that will send a catastrophic solar flare towards Earth. The sun is 93 million miles away from Earth, and January 17th, 2023 was James Earl Jones's birthday and the beginning of his 93rd year. All right, this video is making the prediction that James Earl Jones will die on the date April 11th, 2023. This video was first recorded and made before it was learned that April 11th is in fact a step in the trail of signs that is leading to the predicted date that James Earl Jones will die 30 days after this on May 11th, 2023. However, all of the information in this video that speaks about James Earl Jones and the connection to April 11th with James Earl Jones is still completely valid. And I will make a video after April 11th explaining whatever it is will happen. But the point here is that the information in this video regarding James Earl Jones and April 11th is valid. And again, it is a step in the trail of signs that is leading to the date it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die. All right, now it is past April 11th and May 11th, and it turned out, like I was saying, that it would be. April 11th was in fact a step, and there was a clear and relevant prophetic sign that occurred on that date, which is amazing, which I will explain in future videos regarding James Earl Jones. And also, May 11th was a very, very important date. It is what I would call a super date. It's more important than average, if you will. There were a number of prophetic signs. As I knew ahead of time, God was pointing big time to May 11th. And sure enough, this was the case. There were the prophetic, clear and relevant signs that occurred on the date, including one specifically. Well, it's all a big picture, so they're all connected, right? One of them particularly, though, identified or was clearly James Earl Jones, the man whose name is James, who was the pilot of a plane that crashed. So, but anyway, without getting into that, that will be explained in another video. So the takeaway here is that April 11th and May 11th were correct. The analysis for those dates was correct. May 11th was a very important step to other predictions, including the date that it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die, which it is now known to be January 17th. The date that this is recorded is early July. It's July 9th today. And so anyway, May 11th connects with exactly 36 weeks, which is a number that symbolizes the Antichrist. 666, it is 6 times 6, it is 3 sixes. 36 hints at 3 sixes. 36 is 2 times 18, and 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. The 36th triangular number is 666, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, while all the way up to 36 equals 666. 36 weeks is also 250 days, and that hints at 2,520 days, which is a prominent, important number in Bible prophecy that regards the end times period and the period of the Antichrist. Anyway, long story, the reason why, what will transpire shortly after the death of James Earl Jones, will be symbolism for the lion's roar on the surface of the sun, which will be the explosion on the surface of the sun, the solar flare, and coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth and cause catastrophic power outages, and that will occur on February 22nd, 2024. James Earl Jones will die on his 93rd birthday on January 17th, 2024, and that is because the sun is 93 million miles away from Earth. And That being said, let's continue with the rest of this video, but now know that the analysis for May 11th and April 11th that will be mentioned in the remainder of this video is 100% correct. Now, I just want to also add right here how it is on January 17th, the date of this disconnected tail of Comet E3, that on this same day, there was a stock market sign on January 17th that pointed to May 11th. It was not known until now that the purpose of this prophetic stock market sign was to point to the date of James Earl Jones's death, and that's why it occurred on James Earl Jones's birth date, his 92nd birthday. And I will now explain briefly what the stock market sign was. But first of all, it was his 92nd birthday, and 92 hints at 9 and 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's the 2 in the 92. And so 92 hints at 9 and 1 plus 1, which hints at 9/11. And this is very relevant because this is exactly what the stock market sign was on this date, January 17th. It was 9/11 symbolism in the stock market, and this pointed to May 11th, as I will explain. But this occurred on James Earl Jones's 92nd birthday, and that's because 92 here is hinting at 9/11. I'm just going to read a paragraph that I wrote for some friends. On January 13th, there's some background to this which I won't get into because that's just too much. But on January 13th, the S&P closed at 3,999.09. The number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment. That was on the Friday, the 13th. And then on the Monday, Martin Luther King Day, the futures markets opened for a bit as trading took place overseas, and the S&P futures stopped trading at 3,990.1, which was down 9.0 and minus 22%. I didn't know what this meant, but I was now paying attention. It was because of this attention that the numbers from the following day, on Tuesday, were closely analyzed. The S&P closed at 3,990.97. 990 equals 110 times 9. 990 is also the 44th triangular number, which of course hints at the 44th president. And 97 is the 25th prime number, which hints at the 25th Amendment, which will be used to make the 44th president the president again. And 97, the 25th prime number, hints at 25,000, the Temple Mount, on which the Antichrist, the 44th president, will be on in the end times at the return of Lord Jesus Christ. The number 3 in this number hints at his third presidential term. Also, the 3 is also for 3,000, and this is a 9/11 number because in the book of Exodus at Mount Sinai, after their rebellion, quote, about 3,000, unquote, souls perished, and on 9/11, it was about 3,000 souls that perished. The official number is 2,996, about 3,000. Also, by the way, God uses the S&P 500 as Antichrist symbolism because the 500th Greek word in Strong's New Testament Concordance is the Greek word for Antichrist. But what does all of this mean? I noticed that on Tuesday, the NASDAQ closed at 11,095.11. It occurred to me that in this, we have 1,109, which is a very important number that God has been using, including the serial number on the U.S. cargo plane, the iconic image of that cargo plane with the Afghanis running after it in Kabul. That serial number is 1,109. This was because the collapse of Afghanistan was on the prophetic 20th anniversary of the collapse of the towers on 9/11. 1,109 hints at 110 and 9. It is a pairing of 110 and 9. As was the number 990, within the 3,990.97 number in the S&P 500 index on this same date, this January 17th date. Because again, 990 is 9 times 110, which God uses in his signs to confirm the signs and connections. It's a very big deal because of the 110 stories that collapsed on 9/11 and engendered a small earthquake that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street. Joshua, who led the Hebrews around the walls of security, died at the age of 110. And Wall Street in New York is named after the 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. This is all very relevant because through the 9/11 events, God was pointing to George Washington and his first inauguration at Federal Hall on Wall Street, after which he walked down Wall Street to Trinity Chapel and proceeded to consecrate the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its divine protection and blessings. Anyway, long story, but that's why 110 and 9, and that's what we have in this NASDAQ number on this day of the 92nd birthday of James Earl Jones, which is again hinting at 9/11. If this 1109 number is relevant, then the 5.11 means something. I checked, and Strong's 511 brings up nothing. I checked Daniel 5:11, I checked Revelation 5:11, and nothing. Then it occurred to me to check the date, 5/11/2023. Sure enough, it immediately became clear that 5/11, May 11th, is extremely important. The question then was, what is the significance of this date? And at first, it was believed that Kamala Harris would die in a plane crash on 5/11 because that's what the signs were pointing to. But in fact, it turns out that 5/11 is a step in the trail of signs that is leading to the predicted date of Kamala Harris's plane crash on June 30th. And now it turns out that this step is in fact the death of James Earl Jones. And these two things are related, James Earl Jones and the death of Kamala Harris in St. Louis, but this will be explained in the James Earl Jones videos. But I went into all of this in order to give more information as to how January 17th connects or is a James Earl Jones sign. And although this video is saying how James Earl Jones is predicted to die 12 exact weeks after this Revelation chapter 12 sign on January 17th, this connection is relevant. This connection of 12 weeks to April 11th, which I will now explain. But again, it is a step in the trail of signs that is leading to 30 days later to James Earl Jones's death on May 11th. And the reason for the prophetic significance of 30 days is because James Earl Jones is king symbolism, and in the Bible, 30 years is symbolism for a king. When asked by his disciples for the signs of his return, Jesus replied with the metaphor of birth pains. According to the medical profession, the average human gestation period is 40 weeks. Hence, 40 weeks symbolizes the end times period. From the date 117, and the solar winds that affected the comet's tail, as seen near the constellation Draco the Dragon, it is exactly 12 weeks to the death of the voice of the Lion King, which is in turn exactly 40 weeks to the date 117 in 2024. This will be the 93rd anniversary of the birth of James Earl Jones, and the sun is 93 million miles away from Earth. It is predicted that there will be a relevant prophetic sign on that date, and this trail of signs is leading to the predicted date of the lion's roar on the surface of the sun on February 22nd, 2024. James Earl Jones is king symbolism. He was the voice of Mufasa, the Lion King, the voice of Darth Vader, who is symbolic of the Antichrist king. He played a dying and dead king, King Jaffe, in Coming to America, and James Earl Jones read the audio King James Bible. The the king of the Jews, died in Jerusalem on April 11th in 32 AD, and this is why it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die on the date April 11th in 2023. From the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. April 11th, 2023 will be exactly 9 plus 9 plus 9 years after the path of the Great Comet of 1996, Comet Hyakutake, crossed over the star Algol. In ancient astronomy, Algol is known as the demon star and is associated with evil. Exactly 1 year later, the path of Comet Hale-Bopp also crossed over Algol on April 11th, and the paths of these comets were perpendicular to each other, thus engendering a cross in the night sky over the star known as the demon star and is known for evil on the date that Jesus was crucified. The death of James Earl Jones, who is King Symbolism, on the date April 11th, exactly 9 plus 9 plus 9 years after this cross in the night sky, will symbolize the death of the King of Kings. As well, Jones was the voice of the Lion King, and in Bible prophecy, Jesus Christ is the Lion of Judah. And again, it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die exactly 12 weeks after the Revelation 12 sign in the night sky involving a comet and its tail. This 12 weeks connection connects with this Revelation chapter 12 sign, as it hints at the red dragon and his tail described in Revelation chapter 12, and in turn, this Revelation chapter 12 sign on January 17th was 74 days, which is 1,776 hours, 1776 hours, which hints at America and a judgment warning for America, and 1776 is 4 times 444, and 4 times 444 hours back from this Revelation chapter 12 sign comet in the Draco Dragon constellation that was symbolism for the red dragon was the date 11/4, which hints at 11 times 4 equals 44, and the day that the S&P 500 stock market index lost 44 points, on the day that the rocket of China's, the Red Dragon, crashed uncontrollably to Earth, which was symbolism for the red dragon that is thrown down from heaven to earth in Revelation chapter 12. The comet first appeared visible to the naked eye, and its tail appeared disconnected on the date 117, which, as explained, hints at the high place. The 82nd word in Strong's Hebrew Concordance is the word meaning to fly. From January 17th, and the prophetic comet sign in the constellation Draco the Dragon, it is 82 days to the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will fly and then crash onto the red planet Mars. The red planet hints at the red dragon, and the helicopter on Mars hints at the high place. And in Bible prophecy, those that will be raptured from the red dragon will fly into the air to meet the Lord in the clouds. The helicopter on Mars is predicted to crash on April 9th, the date 49, which hints at the number 49. There is a strong possibility that the helicopter will crash onto the red planet on its 49th flight. Again, the 82nd word in the concordance is the word meaning to fly, and in turn, another 82 days after the helicopter is predicted to crash on the red planet on its 49th flight will be the day it is predicted that the 49th Vice President, Kamala Harris, will fly and then die in a plane crash. The number 82 is the 23rd semi-prime number, and the number 49 hints at 7 times 7, which hints at the 4th prime number times the 4th prime number, which hints at the number 44, and the 44th president and the Antichrist, who wore jersey number 23. Therefore, because 82 is the 23rd semi-prime number, this 82 days connection between the 49th helicopter flight on the date 49 and the death of the 49th vice president in a plane crash is a pairing of the numbers 23 and 44 that confirms the signs and connections. And so from the day that Harrison Ford crashed his helicopter, it is 4 plus 4 days to the day that Flight 990 crashed and killed 203 people, which is a pairing of 23 and 44. And in turn, that day is exactly 23 years to the NTSB report regarding the helicopter crash in Hawaii, which was fine for the first 2 tours of the day, but then crashed on the 3rd tour, which hinted at the number 23. And this in turn is exactly 23 weeks, which is almost exactly 44% of a year to the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars, which is in turn 31 days to the NTSB urgent warning regarding the Bell 407 helicopters, and 407 hints at 4 plus 7 equals 11, and 31 is the 11th prime number. And this was the same day as the official release of the new trailer for the new Indiana Jones Harrison Ford movie, and trailer hints at tails, and the urgent warning from the NTSB was for the helicopter's tails. In turn, from this Bell 407 helicopter sign, which hints at 47, it is 47 days to the date of the prophetic sign of the comet's tail in the constellation Draco the Dragon, and in turn, it is 82 days, and the 82nd word is the word to fly to the date 49, which hints at 49, and the predicted 49th flight, which will end in a crash for NASA's helicopter on the red planet Mars, which is in turn another 82 days, which means to fly to the date it is predicted that the 49th U.S. Vice President, Kamala Harris, will fly and then die in a plane crash, which is what Harrison Ford's helicopter crash back in 1999 was hinting at. Before ending part 1 of this video, the significance of the name of this prophetic comet needs to be explained. The comet's name is E3ZTF. The reason for this name is that the letter E is the 5th letter in the alphabet, and E3 therefore hints at 3 times 5 days. 3 times 5 days before comet E3 first became visible to the naked eye was the day that Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills had a heart attack and fell on the field during a game. Hamlin wears jersey number 3. Comet E3 hints at player number 3. The comet's name, E3ZTF, begins with the letter E and ends with the letter F, and this hints at the letter that follows the letter E and F, the letter G. The letter that follows G is H, and this hints at the player's name, Hamlin. Comet E3 hints at G3. G3 is the 3rd word in Strong's Greek Bible Concordance, which is the word Abaddon, which is the name of the king that rises from the pit of hell in Revelation chapter 9. The name King Abaddon is a name for Satan. It will be explained in a James Earl Jones video, but again, Jones is king symbolism, and his death is predicted to be exactly 12 weeks after this Revelation chapter 12 sign involving comet E3 on Jones's 92nd birthday on the date January 17th. This comet was in the constellation of Draco the Dragon, and the dragon in Revelation chapter 12 is also symbolism for Satan. This comet E3 on January 17th was in Draco the Dragon constellation, which is symbolism for Satan, and King Abaddon is a name for Satan, and the name E3 is because E is the fifth letter of the alphabet, and King Abaddon is described in the fifth trumpet judgment in the book of Revelation, and this description points to the role that 5G cell tower frequencies play in the mark of the Antichrist. And so the name E3 is not only hinting at the letter E and letter F followed by the letter G in order to point to G3, the third word in the concordance that is Abaddon, but the name E3 also hints at 5G because E is the fifth letter of the alphabet, and this name E3ZTF again hints at the letter G, and so the fifth letter and G hints at 5G cell tower frequencies. The name E3 hints at 5 and 3 because again E is the fifth letter, and this prophetic sign involving comet E3 on January 17th was in turn 3 times 5 days after player 3 fell onto the field due to a heart attack that was the result of taking the mark of the Antichrist. The persecution by King Abaddon of those that take the mark of the Antichrist is described in the fifth trumpet and is symbolized by the stings from the scorpions. This persecution from the Antichrist through the mark of the Antichrist is why Damar Hamlin fell on the field after taking the mark of the Antichrist, and why this took place in Cincinnati during a nationally televised Monday Night Football game against a team named the Bengals and a famous quarterback nicknamed the Tiger King. The city of Cincinnati is named after the Roman general and the dictator of Rome, Benito Mussolini, who was Antichrist symbolism, donated to Cincinnati the symbolic statue of Rome in the 10th year of his reign. This 10th year of his reign is inscribed on the statue using a Roman numeral X. From the Bible and the ancient Hebrew alphabet, the letter X is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. This Capitoline statue, the symbolic statue of Rome, in the city of Cincinnati, is in a park named Eden Park, as in the fall of man from the Garden of Eden due to the lies from Satan. In ancient Rome, Christians were persecuted in the Colosseum in the bestiary events involving Bengal tigers. The modern-day Colosseum is the NFL football stadium, and the Cincinnati Bengals football team is symbolic of this. After player 3 fell on the field, the entire Buffalo Bills team came together and kneeled and prayed. Except for one player that wasn't kneeling, and his surname on his jersey just happens to be Neil. This player named Neil wears jersey number 33, and Neil didn't kneel during the prayer for player 3. This was symbolism for how taking the mark of the Antichrist is tantamount to kneeling to Satan. In the Bible, a 30-year period is symbolism for a king. David and Joseph became kings at the age of 30 years old. The third word in the concordance is the name of King Abaddon. Exactly 30 years before Buffalo Bills player 3 fell on the field was the most famous game in Buffalo Bills history that goes by the nickname The Comeback. The amazing prophetic details in this game will be explained in another video, but this hints at the comeback of Satan now that America and Western civilization have rejected Jesus. It also hints at the comeback of Barack Obama for a third term. This big news story regarding Damar Hamlin was all about his comeback from the day he was hospitalized after falling onto the field. Player 3 fell 3 days after the prophetic signs that pointed to James Earl Jones that contained king symbolism. These amazing prophetic signs that occurred on December 30th that pointed to James Earl Jones and the upcoming lion's roar on the surface of the sun, involving LeBron James, whose nickname is King James, and the death of Barbara Walters, the queen of TV interviews, will also be explained more in another video. But one aspect of one of the signs on this date, on December 30th, was LeBron James on his birthday scoring a season high of 47 points, making him the third on the list of players of most points scored after turning 38 years old. And only two other players in NBA history had scored more than 47 points after turning 38 years old. And one of those other two players is the GOAT of basketball, Michael Jordan, who scored 51 points after turning 38 years old, as did the other player also score 51 points, which hinted at 2 times 51, and it is 2 times 51 days from this December 30th date, and this King James basketball sign to the date it is predicted that James Earl Jones, who is king symbolism, will die. The Antichrist will rise to power through Kamala Harris's replacement after her death in a plane crash. Harris will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. Michelle is the feminine version of the name Michael. In Revelation chapter 12, it is the archangel Michael that throws the red dragon and his angels down from heaven to earth. Also in Revelation chapter 12, this dragon sweeps 1/3 of the stars to earth with his tail. This is why this comet E3 sign and the disconnection of its tail as it was entering the constellation of Draco the Dragon occurred on the date 117 in 2023. 117, January 17th, is Michelle Obama's birth date. The signs on 117 hinted at Archangel Michael and the dragon, and on this day, Michelle Obama turned 59 years old. 59 is the 17th prime number, and Michelle Obama turned 59 on this 17th day of the month in January. 117 hints at 1 times 17 equals 17. The Antichrist will be defeated at the return of Lord Jesus Christ on the Day of Atonement in the Hebrew calendar in 2024, and the Day of Atonement is the 10th day of the 7th month, for which the number 17 hints at. In Revelation chapter 13, the beast that symbolizes the Antichrist system has 7 heads and 10 horns, and the number 17 also symbolizes this. The 17th prime number is 59. Michelle Obama turned 59, and she will become the vice president and the first female president as a result of the things that happened in the 59th presidential election. The main prophetic reason for the prophetic significance of the number 59 is not only that 59 is the 17th prime number, and this reason comes up in this context with the 59th birthday of Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama turned 59 years old on this date 117, which hints at 1 times 17 equals 17, and 59 is the 17th prime number, because this points to the first state that legalized abortion, the state that the Antichrist is from, Michelle Obama's husband, the state that joined the Union in 1959. In the book of Revelation, the number 144 is extremely prophetic, and it symbolizes those that will be raptured from the persecution from the dragon. From the day that abortion was legalized in the 50th state, that became a state in 1959, it is exactly 144 weeks to the day that the last American astronaut set foot on the moon. The last astronaut on the Apollo 17 mission stepped off of the moon On December 14th, 1972, exactly 144 weeks after abortion was first legalized in the state that joined the Union in 1959. This connects the number 59 to 17, Apollo 17. The reason why this is so extremely profound and significant, and couldn't be more significant, is because the moon symbolizes Christ. It is also a rock, which in the Bible, rock is symbolism for Jesus Christ. The sun symbolizes God the Father, and the sun's light is too bright for us to gaze at, but we can gaze at the sun's light reflected off of the moon. This is why watching the moon and watching for moon prophetic signs symbolizes watching for the return of Lord Jesus Christ and his second coming. The last time that an astronaut stepped off of the moon is symbolism for America departing from Christ. This is the symbolism for Apollo 17. It is symbolism for America turning away and leaving Jesus Christ. This is the significance of the Apollo 17 mission in God's prophetic signs. And symbolically, it was the first Apollo mission launch at nighttime. Apollo 17 is the reason why the two planes that struck the two towers on 9/11, the big judgment warning sign, struck the two towers 17 minutes apart. Apollo 17 is the reason why the Challenger space shuttle disaster and the Columbia space shuttle disaster occurred almost on the exact same date in the calendar year, which is why the two events are commemorated on the same day every year, February 1st. And these two space shuttle disasters were 17 years apart. The two space shuttle disasters, 17 minutes apart, was paralleled with the two planes that struck the two towers 17 minutes apart, and this was all in order to point to Apollo 17, the day that America last departed the moon, which symbolizes Jesus. And just a quick couple of confirmations to, first of all, confirm the prophetic significance of Hawaii is that Hawaii was the 50th state. Obama made his infamous 50 states gaffe. Instead of, he said 57 states, and there are 50 states on the campaign trail in 2008, which is quite something given that he is from the 50th state and should know better. And also coincidentally, there are 57 states in the Islamic countries of cooperation. And Obama has repeatedly made other gaffes in which he has said that Islam is his faith, and he is from the most populous Muslim country, Indonesia, where he grew up for 4 years. And he made this 57 states gaffe instead of 50 states exactly 50 years after the airing of the TV episode titled End of the World, in which the plot was about a man named Trump trying to sell the townsfolk of an Old West town a wall of security, which of course hinted at Trump and his border wall of security, and Barack Obama's infamous 50 states gaffe was exactly 144,000 hours before the Day of Atonement in 2024, Judgment Day, and the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, when he will vanquish the Antichrist Barack Obama from the Temple Mount. And that 144,000 hours connection obviously hints at the 144,000 number in the book of Revelation, which confirms this 144 weeks exactly in this connection here. Also, Hawaii is the 50th state, and exactly 50 years after Hawaii became the first state to legalize abortion was March 13th, 2020, and that was the day that Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, trumpeted a national emergency for COVID. This was the day that he declared a national emergency for COVID-19, exactly 50 years after the day that abortion was first legalized. Exactly 50 biblical years, and a biblical year is a prophetic year in the Bible made up of 12 months of 30 days. And in the Bible, incidentally, 50 years is extremely prophetic in Leviticus chapter 25. Exactly 50 biblical years after the last American astronaut departed from the moon on December 14th, 1972, was March 27th, 2022, and the day that Will Smith got up on the stage at the Academy Awards and slapped hard Chris Rock. Jesus is the rock in the Bible. The moon is a rock. And Chris hints at Christian, Christ. And Will Smith, after this, won the Academy Award for King Richard, which hints at the King of Kings, Jesus Christ, and also the Antichrist king that the King of Kings will defeat at his second coming, which will be shortly after, a few months after, a rock, an asteroid, will slap Earth, which was the point, God's prophetic sign, the point of it, of Chris Rock, or rather Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. In other words, it was a major judgment warning sign, and it was exactly 50 biblical years after America last left the rock, the moon, which symbolizes Christ, hence Chris Rock. And that is why this sign in the night sky that involves Michelle Obama turning 59 years old on the date that symbolizes 17. It again hints at the exact 144 weeks in between the state that legalized abortion first, the state that joined in 1959, and the last day of the astronaut that stepped off the moon in the Apollo 17 mission. On September 28th, 2022, Hurricane Ian, the most destructive hurricane since Katrina, pummeled the 27th state to join the Union. God uses 27 as an emphasis of the number 9. 27 is 9 plus 9 plus 9. From the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and in his prophetic signs, it is the most important number. On the day that Hurricane Ian hit the 27th state, which hints at 9 plus 9 plus 9, New York Yankees baseball player Aaron Judge, and again, the number 9 symbolizes judgment. Aaron Judge, player number 99, his jersey number is 99, tied Roger Maris's home run record of 61 home runs in a season, and Roger Maris wore jersey number 9. There is a ton more to this, and it is an entire other video in itself, and so I won't get into this prophetic sign. I only use this as support to the prophetic significance of the death of the rapper Coolio, who is most famous for his iconic song, Gangster's Paradise. Since abortion was legalized, America has been a gangster's paradise. Coolio, who was the rapper of the song Gangster's Paradise, died at the age of 59 years old. He died at 59 years old on the date of these signs involving the number 9, again player number 99, and the 27th state that was hit with Hurricane Ian, and 27 is 9 plus 9 plus 9, and this is why this date is 111 days to the date that Michelle Obama turned 59 on the date 117, which hints at 17. And this connection of 111 days from these signs involving the number 9 is 9/11 symbolism, and it connects to the date 117, and on 9/11, the two planes struck the two towers 17 minutes apart. There is more to this, but it is also another tangent, another video in itself, and it is explained in other videos. But later in November of 2022 was another hurricane, Hurricane Nicole, and the strongest winds from Hurricane Nicole struck NASA's Artemis 1 as it was sitting on the launch pad, which brought in NASA once again and space, and the paths of these two hurricanes made an uncanny parallel with the paths of the two hurricanes in 2004, 6 plus 6 plus 6 years earlier, and 6 plus 6 plus 6 years is also 6 times 6 times 6 months, which hints at the Antichrist. There are a number of eerie similarities between these two sets of hurricanes in 2004 and 2022. For one thing, Hurricane Charlie and Hurricane Jean in 2004 were 43 days apart, and likewise, Hurricane Ian and Nicole in 2022 were also 43 days apart. Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Charlie both hit the west coast of Florida at Cayo Costa. The exact same spot is where both of the eyes of the hurricanes made landfall, and likewise, Hurricane Jean and Hurricane Nicole made landfall at almost the exact same spot. There are other similarities as well. Both Ian and Charlie were very different. Likewise, Nicole and Jean were very different. Nicole was a Category 1, Jean was a Category 3. Ian had a very large wind, I don't know what they call it, a wind span or something. And conversely, Charlie could fit inside the eye wall of Ian. So that is also a similarity. These two hurricanes in 2004, Hurricane Jean and Hurricane Charlie, made the exact same paths pretty much. In fact, it startled and shocked meteorologists, the same paths as the two paths of the hurricanes in 2022, Nicole and Ian. They both engendered an X over Florida. And this hinted at the X that will be engendered with the two eclipses, the paths of the two eclipses over America, the one in 2017 and the upcoming one in 2024. And where these two paths cross each other will be where the first eclipse in 2017 peaked over an area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt, including Cairo, Illinois. And on this same day as Hurricane Nicole, 3 cooling towers were demolished next to a town in Kentucky named Paradise, and these towers were in the Paradise fossil plant, and they were built 59 years earlier. The cooling towers hints at Coolio, the rapper who died at 59. These towers had existed for 59 years, and the location of these towers in Paradise hints at Florida, which is a paradise, and Gangster's Paradise, the song, and the location is exactly in the area of the country where these two eclipses will cross each other. And that hinted at, on that same day, how the two hurricanes' paths crossed each other and produced an X. And this X across America and these two paths that crossed each other in Florida of the hurricanes is symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist, which is why the hurricanes in 2004 and 2022 occurred 6 plus 6 plus 6 years apart. Another thing is that the 2017 eclipse is very much also connected to prophetic hurricanes, because following that eclipse, there was the 3 witness signs, the prophetic confirmation witness signs that confirmed that the eclipse was a judgment warning for America. The 3 following hurricanes were Harvey, Irma, and Maria, which gives us the acronym HIM, which hints at Jesus. But Harvey, the eclipse in 2017, after it exited the U.S. over the open Atlantic, it ended and made a bullseye right on Hurricane Harvey, where it was forming in the open Atlantic. And then Hurricane Harvey hit 4 days after the eclipse and hit the 4th biggest city in the U.S. and dumped 4 feet of water on it over 4 days. And there's more to that too. It was 44 days after that to the 4th witness sign, which was the California wildfires, in which 44 people died in the fires that lasted for 4 days and created red flag conditions in 44 counties, and on and on and on. Now, the eclipse in 2017 occurred on the 21st of August and made a bullseye on Harvey, and then Harvey hit the coast of Texas and Houston on the 25th of August. And the reason for these two dates, the 21st and 25th, is because God was pointing to Luke 21:25. Luke 21:25. And there will be signs in the sun and the moon and stars. In other words, eclipses. And on the earth, distress of nations in perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves. Luke 21:25. The eclipse on the 21st and then Harvey on the 25th is in fact pointing to this, which is the signs in the sun and the moon, because that's what eclipses are, and then the roaring of the sea and the waves. But anyway, my point being is that the 2017 eclipse is connected to hurricanes. And so we have this connection to these hurricanes in 2022 and 2004 with the X's that I've just been explaining, and that is confirmed through the cooling towers that were demolished. And at 59 years, there was 3 cooling towers, and actually that's also prophetic too. Speaking of eclipses, and it really is just infinite. Because the blood moon's tetrads, the blood moon eclipses in the tetrad were separated by 177 days. And 177 days is 3 times 59. And we had these 3 cooling towers that were 59 years old. And so if you're following me here, that is a confirmation because we're talking about eclipses. And so these cooling towers, like I said, were demolished right in the center of where these 2 eclipses pass over each other, the 2017 and 2024 eclipse, over in the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. Also, in the Bible, falling towers and falling walls of security are judgment signs, are symbolism for spiritual death and judgment on a nation. And so that's also why the symbolism in the collapse of these towers. And because in the book of Joshua led the Hebrews around the walls of security of Jericho, and there was 3 sets of 7. They marched for 7 days, and then on the 7th day, they marched 7 times while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. And so there's a symbolic 3 sets of 7 there that God is using throughout his signs, and that's why it was 3 cooling towers that were 59 years old and pointing to the eclipse, because in the blood moon tetrad, it is 3 times 59 days. In fact, it is 3 times 59 days, because in a blood moon tetrad, you have the 4 prophetic blood moons separated each by 177 days, 3 sets of 177 days, and 177 days is 3 times 59 days. And that's a 3 sets of 7 because 3 times 59 days, 59 is the 17th prime number, and 17 is the 7th prime number. And so 3 cooling towers at 59 years old that collapsed is in fact a 3 sets of judgment collapsing in God's judgment prophetic sign. Now, another thing too, I hesitate to go any further though, because I've already explained enough of this in other videos, but we are on the subject. And so Nicole, so as I've just mentioned, these eclipses are hinting at the mark of the Antichrist. And again, that's why the eclipses in 2004 and 2022 are 6 times 6 times 6 months apart and 6 plus 6 plus 6 years apart. It's Antichrist symbolism. And again, the reason why the cross or the X and that is engendered by the hurricanes and the eclipses is because it hints at the mark of the Antichrist, because of the symbolism for the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist described in Ezekiel chapter 9 in the Bible, which would have been a Tav mark, and in Paleo Hebrew that Tav mark was an X, and also because the X hints at chromosomes, which is what is affected by the mark of the Antichrist. But the last of all of the 4 is this prophetic one, Nicole, and that is because God is hinting at the Nick-Olaetan doctrine that's described in Revelation chapter 2, that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war on with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. It's very serious, and Jesus is speaking about this in the future tense. In other words, there is such a thing as a Nicolaitan doctrine today, and God is revealing, or has revealed overwhelmingly in many, many ways, what precisely this Nicolaitan doctrine is. And he has done so with this Hurricane Nicole as well, because a prophetic sign within Hurricane Nicole is this viral video of these sharks, which is Antichrist symbolism, and God has used sharks in another prophetic sign that's very profound, which is also Antichrist symbolism, that other sign that I'm referring to. But these sharks were swimming across this road in Hutchinson Beach, Florida. And this is because God is using Hutchinson, including, for example, the shot of the woman named Hutchins on the set of the movie set of Rust with Alec Baldwin. That shot is symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist. And so anyway, Hutchinson is pointing to Anne Hutchinson, the leader of the Free Grace movement at the spiritual founding of America, which is, by the way, on the coast. This Nicole hit the East Coast, although it was in the most southern part of the coast. Its opposite is the most northern part, Massachusetts, arguably. Of course, it's New England, so it is. And that's also the symbolism there. And that's why you have the variations in the hurricanes. You have, for example, Nicole was a category 1, whereas Jean was a category 3. It was in the southern coast, but it's pointing to the northern coast because this is ultimately pointing to Hutchinson Beach, which is Anne Hutchinson symbolism, which is pointing to the Nicolaitan doctrine, which is the doctrine of Anne Hutchinson, which is the free grace doctrine, which the vast majority of evangelical Christians have today. It is this doctrine which I explain in the absolute must-watch 23 Church Signs video. Believe me, the reason for the purpose of this prediction being made in this video is to prove this to you. I know that most evangelicals will be highly, highly reluctant to receive this information, and that is the reason for this prediction. There's more to this. It is very important, and this doctrine is the reason why the majority of Christians, so-called Christians, have taken the mark of the Antichrist. Quote-unquote Christians have taken the mark of the Antichrist because it is judgment for their doctrine. Their Nicolaitan doctrine, the doctrine of Anne Hutchinson, free grace, otherwise properly known as antinomianism. And free grace comes in the package of dispensationalism, which is one of the things that these Christians tell themselves for why it is that this thing couldn't possibly be the mark of the Antichrist, because of their heretical dispensational doctrine, and that's why it is judgment for their doctrine. And this is precisely what is being communicated through these prophetic signs that I've just explained. And so I'll just quickly review this again. We have these hurricanes that cross over each other and engender an X, and we have the similarities to confirm this is important, and they are exactly, or not exactly, but 6 + 6 + 6 years apart. The hurricanes in those years are exactly 43 days apart each, but also, as it was just explained, this points to the eclipses over America and how they hint at 23 chromosomes, and the Tav mark, which is the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist. It's the symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist in Ezekiel chapter 9. And the last of the 4 of the hurricanes is Nicole, and it is hinting at Hurricane Nicole. There's more to Hurricane Nicole and its prophetic significance. For example, the highest wind speeds were recorded at Kennedy Space Center as and while the Artemis 1 space launch system was sitting on the launch pad, and that's a whole other rabbit trail of more prophetic signs. But so in other words, there's more to Hurricane Nicole. It's very important, and The reason for the name Nicole is obviously it's hinting at Nicolaitan. But this is also confirmed with the viral video of the Hutchinson Beach sharks. And that's because Hutchinson is what God is also using to point to the Nicolaitan doctrine. And so we have the connection here between the Nicolaitan doctrine and the mark of the Antichrist. In other words, the mark of the Antichrist for these Christians that have taken it is judgment for their Nicolaitan doctrine. That's clear. It's very simple. Okay, there's more to these two sharks. In fact, that's the point. There are two sharks. This is hinting at the two antichrists that are described in Revelation chapter 13. These antichrists in this chapter are described using a metaphor of a beast. There's two beasts. Sharks are a beast. That's why there are two sharks. It's hinting at the two antichrists. And these two antichrists are, these two sharks are swimming side by side. They're not far apart from each other even. They're literally together side by side in order to confirm that they are two sharks, two antichrists working in tandem as is described in Revelation chapter 13. Also, the sharks are swimming out of the ocean and onto the land. Revelation chapter 13 verse 1, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea." This beast in Revelation chapter 13 rises out of the sea onto the land. And that's exactly what's happening with these sharks, the two of them. If you found the information in this video to be interesting, and I assume that you did, you will definitely want to watch part 2. The information will continue to build on itself and become more and more amazing. The information is also extremely important. Make sure you watch part 2. Part 2 goes under a different title. Part 2 is titled Prediction: NASA's Mars Copter Will Crash on April 9th. I will leave a link in the description box below this video to part 2. Please leave a like and a comment on this video and share this video everywhere with everyone you know and everywhere in social media, and don't stop sharing it. And if you are Christian, know that it is your obligation to share it everywhere you go. Ezekiel chapter 33. The watchmen that don't warn others of what God is communicating is coming, God will hold them responsible for the sin of others. In the most important video on this channel, which is titled God's Purpose for These Predictions, I will explain the reason for why God has given me a voice through this prediction that is from God. You are making a very grave and serious error if you think you already know how I was able to know this prediction, and more importantly, if you think you already know why I was able to know this prediction. It would be very foolish for you to skip watching this most important video. You will have missed the point of this prediction. One of the purposes for this prediction is to establish that the main conclusions being stated in this video are fact. The purpose of these predictions from God is to prove that the main conclusions that are stated in these videos are fact. There is no more debate. The debate has ended regarding these controversial things. It is a serious warning for those that disagree with the things being stated in this video. And to not appreciate this is to miss entirely the point of this prediction that is from God, and it is to miss the point of this video and video channel. This is how prophecy works. This is how God proves things. This is why 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy, in order to prove that it is the Word of God. Jesus said to those that doubted him, if they didn't believe what he had said, then they should believe the works. They should believe the healings and miracles that Jesus did. In the description box below, I will leave a link to the video titled God's Purpose for These Predictions. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs for the gullible that will believe it because they don't have a solid biblical worldview. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. The New Age or New Spirituality or Consciousness religion is evil deception from Satan. Satan and demons will give Catholics and New Agers spiritual experiences that they think confirm for them their beliefs, but these spiritual experiences are demonic deception for those that refuse to love the truth and so be saved. There is a spiritual reality behind the material world that we see. The wages for sin is death. Sin means to miss the mark. No one is good, all have sinned. Because of sin, people are captives of the ruler of this world, Satan. People's souls belong to Satan, whose power over people is death. God took the form of a man, Jesus Christ, and paid the ransom that is owed to the ruler of this world. Through Christ's death and resurrection, he defeated sin and he overcame Satan's power in death. It is through Christ and his Spirit that it is possible for everyone to be forgiven of their sin, and we can have eternal life if we choose it. We can choose to follow Jesus out of captivity from sin and Satan, or we can choose to reject this and remain a slave to this world, sin, and to Satan. If one rejects Jesus Christ, after they die, they will pay the price for their sin in hell, and then they will die the second death, and their soul will cease to exist. Believing in Christ means much more than simple intellectual agreement. It means to repent of sin and completely commit one's life and become a willing slave to Jesus and his kingdom. Jesus said we need to be born again, which implies a death of the self and a death to this world. Believing in Jesus implies living out one's faith through taking action that typically involves risk and sacrifice. This demonstration of faith through action is what it means to have faith and to believe in Jesus. Some Christians will tell you otherwise, but they are deceived, and they ignore countless passages in the Bible. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com.